Hiring excellence to me is having an embedded recruiting model, and which plays into a lot of the things we've been talking about this evening. But to me, an embedded recruiting model is similar in some ways to how PDPs have been embedded for so long. But I've always been confused on why did the talent team not have the same budget or opportunity to be that embedded in the business.
Welcome to Offer Accepted, the podcast that elevates your recruiting game. I'm your host, Shannon Ogborn. Join us for conversations with talent leaders, executives, and more to uncover the secrets to building and leading successful talent acquisition teams. Gain valuable insights and actionable advice from analyzing cutting-edge metrics to confidently claiming your seat at the table. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Offer Accepted. I'm Shannon Ogborn, your host, and this episode is brought to you by Ashby, the all-in-one recruiting platform empowering ambitious teams from seed to IPO and beyond. I am so excited to have Tommy Hansen with us here today, joining all the way from Minnesota. So we're very grateful that he flew in to join us for this. Tommy brings 11 plus years of recruiting experience from agency recruiting to scaling 2 fintech startups. For the past 5.5 years, he's built and led a global recruiting function at Juniper Square, which is a unicorn Series D fintech company driving innovation in the private markets. When he joined, the company had around 100 US-based employees, and today it's on track to reach nearly 950 across North America, India, and Europe. So he done seen some growth here. I'm really excited to get to our topic today and hear more about how Juniper Square is able to achieve 80 to 90% accomplishment on unplanned headcount, not planned headcount, unplanned headcount. But first, I would love to hear from you, Tommy. Tell me a little bit about why planning for unplanned headcount matters so much, especially today.
Well, firstly, thank you for having me here today and allowing me to be a part of the Denver TA community. So planning for unplanned headcount has been a big focus for us with hypergrowth and kind of going through our journey from 100 to almost 950 employees. It's a time of a lot of change within TA, how companies are structuring their departments, AIs, of course, playing a really big role right now. And so the more that you can get ahead of the unplanned, the more you can position the TA team to be a strategic partner in the business. If you're only focusing on the planned headcount, you risk being just in execution mode and not being able to have a seat at the table. And so through that, we've been able to help drive the business forward and play some really big impacts on some of our biggest accomplishments in the last couple of years.
How do you feel like it's been being on the ride from 100 to 950? There's had to have been a lot of unplanned headcount in there.
It's why I have short hair, if you can click off the grays on the side. No, but it's been a really exciting journey. I think at each chapter, you're quickly scaling and you're breaking what you just built and needing to quickly re-break it again. But it brings this attitude of what got us here, which I'll probably bring up multiple times, is not going to get us there. How can we be creative and how can we think differently?
I love that. And one of the most important things for folks who haven't listened to the Offer Accepted podcast in the past is we are really trying to get past the surface level of, okay, we did this great thing. It's like, well, how did you do that great thing and how can I apply that to me or my team? And so we're going to get into some of that now because impressive results, but what should people be looking out for on how to strategically plan for unplanned headcount, and how did you all work through that?
Yeah, I think it varies for every company, but the biggest thing is to just try experimenting. And so when we started thinking about, okay, what is the problem that we're facing right now, the first thing that came to light was we define headcount very differently than our finance team. You gotta be best friends with your finance partner, but to them it can be very black and white. This is our headcount at the beginning of the year, this is where we're going. Easy, right? But there's so much that happens in between. And so the more that you can start to get ahead of that and realize where are maybe those gaps or you're speaking kind of a different language, you can start to really think about how to build this out. And so tactically, we quickly realized that there was 2 main gaps for us. One was we didn't have a true headcount source of truth. We would get some preliminary spreadsheet at the beginning of the year, and they're like, here you go. And
classic.
Then things would quickly change, sometimes a month later within like the first board meeting of the year, and that wasn't getting updated. And then as all this headcount was coming in through different initiatives, maybe it's a big deal because we're focusing on going up market and closing bigger deals. Maybe it's launching internship programs that take a ton of work, or global expansion. There was no change log. So there was nothing to look back at and be like, where did we start that quarter and what happened in between? And so when we were able to identify that problem, we were then able to really think about, okay, what does unplanned headcount mean at Juniper Square? For us, unplanned headcount is planned headcount, sorry, is what we knew at the beginning of the quarter that we had to work on during that quarter. Unplanned headcount was anything that happened thereafter. And so that could be incremental, that could be backfills due to internal transfer, or that could be attrition. So now that we're able to identify the problem, define what unplanned and planned headcount means to us, we're then able to start to build that out. We're proud users of Ashby. And so that made it quite easy for us because when you open a job in Ashby, you can use custom fields. And within the job opening, we created 2 custom fields that would help us start to track this. The first one was around role type. Is this incremental? Is this backfill? And then we also created a second one that was around the status of that role. Is it planned or is it unplanned? So once we had those custom fields, Ashby makes it very easy to be able to report on those. And we created a dashboard. We have a core recruiting dashboard that is intended for our executive team to be able to self-serve and view. And so within the top of that dashboard, we created 3 pie charts. The first one was, what was the planned headcount for that quarter? The second was, what's our progress to that headcount during the quarter? And then our third most important one is, what's our progress to our adjusted goal, which is that planned and that unplanned combined. So now for the first time, we're able to actually visualize what we in TA feel so often. And that was a really cool moment for us.
Was your executive team shocked? Were they like, oh my God, this is actually way more than we thought?
Yeah, so when I kind of started this, I said experiment and just start trying. And so when we started experimenting, they're like, that can't be right. No, that's not right. How are you defining that? Are you sure that's unplanned?
Better than you.
Yeah. But yes, overall, they were really shocked. And I think throughout today, I'll probably share a couple of examples, but it did not take very long to be able to use this to drive a ton of progress within the way that we resource the talent team. And we were able to get more budget, we have systems in place, and we were able to have more of that seat at the table.
That's amazing results. And I think working with executives sometimes it just requires more information. And what I like about what you did is you thought about the structure before you put it into a tool, and you thought very strategically about what it actually looks like before you accelerated the process with a tool.
Yeah. So when we started this process, we wanted to measure it for a period of time before we really started using it to drive influence. So we started this at Q2 of last fiscal year. So we knew we would have 3 quarters of collecting the data. This was at a time that we were starting to expand globally into India rapidly, starting to expand into Europe. And so there was a lot of headcount going on at that time. So it's a perfect time to start tracking all of it and seeing what is working, what is not working. And then before we launched it, we actually met with our executive, our executive that oversees the people team, and one that overlooks an area of our business called fund administration. It's professional services that we offer where we have a lot of our headcount, and got some of their feedback. And then before we officially launched it, we were able to revise a lot of that. And then when we got their buy-in, that kind of helped us get ahead of what would be needed when we presented it more broadly.
I have to say, Tommy has way more patience than me waiting 3 quarters to collect the information. I don't know if I could do it. So tell me a little bit about this strengthening partnership with leadership, because it sounds like that was a really important piece of the puzzle. And you got buy-in, but not so much that you were like overcommitting. Tell me a little bit about how that worked, and maybe tell us a little bit about what resonates with your executive team, because not everything resonates with everybody.
That's a really good question. So after tracking it for 3 quarters, we found that 40 to 60% of our headcount was unplanned.
Oh
And
my God.
to put this into perspective, last fiscal year, we were 5 people, including myself, and we did 302 hires.
Every time he says this, I gasp. Let's give a round of applause for Tommy's team.
Thank you. We have an amazing team, and about 55% of that was in North America, and about 45% was in India at the time. And so at that time, we were preparing to start to share this more broadly with the executive team. And we launched officially in Q1 of this year, so we just wrapped up Q2. And by probably halfway through Q1, they were like, we were able to meet with them because we got 80 unplanned headcount in a period of time. Part of this was an initiative to launch an AI master's level engineering program that we had 4 weeks to build, launch, hire. That was really fun, but very rewarding. We were able to convert 50% of that, which is really great. So through that internship program, closing a couple large deals that would require more headcount, it was time to go to the SLT and say, we got something for you. And I was able to partner with our head of people to be able to do this. And what she told me going into it that would resonate is be prepared to talk through what you can do with the capacity you have today and what you can't do. And let's focus on prioritization. Yeah. And so what we did is we actually pulled up our company OKRs, went to the SLT, and we were like, here's the reality. We have over 130 roles to fill, 80 of which we did not know about a month ago. We need your help. Which of these roles are going to help us accomplish these OKRs the fastest? And we put it into 3 different buckets: priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. Now, many of us have gone into these priority meetings in the past and even probably left being like, what just happened? Within 30 minutes, we had full alignment across the entire executive team.
Wow. Because usually I feel like you leave and it's like, everything is priority 1. What do you mean?
Yes, and we used to do that kind of async in a doc, and everything was priority 1. So that was a really cool moment to be like, I think this may actually work. And so with that, then at the end of the meeting, I kind of talked through what we needed to be able to prioritize those roles. And I think oftentimes these budget conversations can be tough because you need a lot, but you have to frame it in a way that makes them feel like we can do this with less and under promise, over deliver. And so through that, I started kind of walking them through some different levers that we could pull to help make sure that we were going to be able to execute this headcount. And it was using that data for those 3 quarters to share with them that we were able to accomplish typically 80 to 90% of that adjusted goal, but this is at a different volume than prior. And then it was through that we got budget to bring on some RPOs, sourcing support, and then some different tooling that I'm sure we'll talk about today too that has been awesome so far.
That's great. I think that having a good relationship with your SLT is such a critical part in being successful in recruiting, and just being like recruiting teams being business smart, I think is a really important wave of the future. It's always been important, but especially because teams are so much leaner now than they've ever been. It's so important that you understand the business so that you can, and it's not say like you're leveraging that against your executive team, but you're saying, hey, like, here's what I know our goals are, here's how we can help achieve them, but in order to do that, we need XYZ.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that this helped with, so we went into that prioritization meeting, felt pretty good about it. But what was kind of the moment that made me realize this is really working was the way we're able to start framing headcount in our weekly syncs. So we have a couple bi-weeklies or weekly syncs with a couple of the executive teams that are hiring quite rapidly. And most of these historically are, here's our progress on these roles, they're going okay, or we need your help getting people to update their calendars so we have less reschedules, things that are important but aren't really helping long-term move the needle. Through unplanned headcount and starting to get ahead of the unknown, we were able to start having more conversations around what could trigger more headcount. Let's look at the OKRs. What are we working towards? If we accomplish X, what is needed? And so an example of this right now is we are trying to go up market, close much larger deals. And when we close these larger deals, sometimes we have to go quickly staff to be able to service those deals. And so we were able to then break down the revenue for that department and say for every X dollar of revenue we bring in, we need to go make a hire. And so now this meeting was less around some of those more kind of foundational one-on-one meeting agenda items to more around what's our forecast for the next 1 to 2 quarters. And if we were able to accomplish 70% of that, how much headcount would we need? And then from a margin standpoint, as a late stage company, we have to look a lot at our margins right now. Where should we staff this? Should it be Canada, the US, India? And now you're just starting to have a completely different tone to that meeting and helping to really show that we can help drive results. And one that I'm really, really, really proud of is in Q1, we closed our largest deal ever. It was really, really exciting. We are now starting to sell deals that are $2-3 million. Not too long ago, we were celebrating $30,000 deals. So it doesn't take long to get there. But what was really cool about this large client is within a few months, they wanted to expand. This would bring their total spend to over $10 million. The COO of this private equity firm would not sign the expansion deal until we built a niche team for them of people. And they had very specific requirements that they wanted. The faster we filled it, the faster they were going to sign. And we were able to accomplish that. And when we celebrated that as a company, there was a lot of people involved, but up front and center was the talent team kind of helping with making this possible. And that was the moment that's like, okay, now they can see the type of impact we can make when we're having these proactive conversations and we have different levers we can pull when we have unplanned headcount.
Wow, I guess is my first comment. That is seriously amazing though, and just being able to, like, talent teams are under-recognized. I think we have probably all experienced that. But having your executive team be like recognizing you front and center because of your strategic partnership with them is a result of its own. There's more results, but that would make me feel good.
Yeah, and it makes our team feel good too, right? Like it just brings a different energy to it. And startups are hard, and it can be very consuming, and you never know what is going to come up next. So to be able to pivot quickly, you have to feel seen, appreciated, and you have to feel like you're in the know.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier when you were talking about sort of the why this is important is leading the team through change and growth. We know that there's a lot of market factors right now. We know that there's a lot of technology factors right now and team size factors. Can you walk through how you've done this all with your team? And I know you guys have a pretty interesting approach with some of the folks on your team, like the recruiting associates. So I think that would be really interesting for folks to hear.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think everyone in this room, and my team included, we all have our PhD at this point in change management over the last few years. And so going through change, everything from COVID time to 2022 to now AI, I've really tried to anchor back to the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we making the changes? What impact will this have on the business? And really through those conversations, the team starts to understand more of the impact that they can have, but it also helps improve their business acumen. And I think as we think about AI radically changing the way that we recruit and do business, a key skill is going to be being really strong with your business acumen, understanding the margins, what are the core metrics that are going to help make the company successful. And so as we were going through these, I was able to work with the team and help really break it down for them and help them understand that, and then help show them how they can drive a lot of these huge results that are going to help us to accomplish huge milestones along the way. And that really led to this growth mindset and the team seeing these changes as an opportunity to add something to their toolbox. Now, of course, there's moments that is frustrating and you get an extra gray hair or two. But at the end of the day, you know the purpose, you know the why, and you know that you have a big role to play. And then as we got a lot of these wins along the way, really celebrating that and looking back and being able to say, we made that pivot, that was really tough, but look what you just accomplished and look what this did for the business. And that has brought such incredible energy for our team. My biggest accomplishment, if I were to leave Juniper Square today, I would say my legacy is that through that change management, we're able to retain the team and we're able to have the highest engagement score in the entire company consistently. And that is just those moments that give you like goosebumps and you're like, that was really hard, but we did it together and I'm so grateful you're all still here to do it with me.
That's amazing. And having experienced super high growth at an earlier startup where I was doing a lot of the hiring, every time I look at the number on my resume, I was the one person who brought this team from 60 to 120 by myself. And I'm like, damn it, nobody can take that away from me. I did that thing. And it's great to celebrate that with your team and share that because they'll look back and say, I did this, and that will never change. So
Absolutely.
I love that.
And when I had the opportunity to step into my role now, it was unplanned. So I got to work with a mentor.
I love the irony
I
of
didn't
that.
plan that on that one, but I got to work with a mentor that helped bring me over to Juniper Square. And I always set a goal for myself. If she ever left, they would never have to backfill her. I could step into that role. And it happened very quickly. And it also happened when another colleague of mine got moved into another people team to lead that function. And suddenly I'm like, okay. And then this is when I was starting to get the headcount for last year that told us we were going to have to hire over 300 people. And I think what was really cool about that moment was bringing the team together and saying, if I'm able to take this step up, you're all going to grow in this next year. And what was manifest a year from now, what do we want to accomplish? And we said that we wanted everyone to have a huge year of growth. Well, 3 of them were promoted, which is really exciting. And then 1 of them got to take on a massive new role that is really setting her up for a promotion this year. And like I said, 302 hires, 5 people, and they're all still with us today. It's really meaningful.
I'm sure in large part thanks to your leadership. So on the note of the business acumen, though, I think it's great for the business and it's great for recruiters, but it's also great for candidates. Like, candidates are more skeptical than ever about joining a company. Like, people are jaded very reasonably. People are not trusting right now, also very reasonably. Even, and recruiters are right in there, right in that too, with the job market. And I just think being able to sell your company to a candidate because you know the numbers. If you're a private company, you know the runway, you know the cash in the bank, your burn multiple, all of these things. It helps you understand the business better and how successful the business is doing. But then you can pass that information along to candidates, and it's like transparency is such a big part of what candidates are looking for right now, and I think that helps exponentially.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up. One of the core values at Juniper Square is think like an owner, and through that comes transparency. And so back when we were 100 people, Marissa here today was with us when we were 30 people. Our CEO had a tradition of after every board meeting, he would share the board deck with the entire company. And there's a lot of information in there that comes with a lot of trust. He still does that today. And so when the team sees that and you have that transparency, that builds this entrepreneurial spirit that leads to understanding the business more, and that also leads to that business acumen that is so important. So when they're talking to candidates, they're like, whoa, okay, you really know this business well. And then when you can leverage tools like AI or having a standard interview process, you can then spend more time in that initial recruiter screen, building rapport with them and helping really understand what's important to you. And a lot of times it is stability. And like you said, rightfully so right now. And then the recruiters can then talk about, okay, well, in our last board meeting, here were our results, obviously some of it confidential, but enough that you can kind of share some benchmarks with them that help them to understand that coming to Juniper Square is going to be hard work. We're building something rapidly here, but we have stability behind us too.
Yeah, and not enough people leverage the stability element. There's actually a lot of startups now that are a lot more stable than some of the larger tech companies that have historically seen that stability. So I think it's definitely a great lever to pull, but we are very in the weeds there. We're gonna pull all the way back, 30,000 foot view. At Ashby, we talk a lot about hiring excellence. One of the things that we're really trying to do is enable teams to accomplish hiring excellence and what that means to their team. And so I always love to hear from our guests, when you hear hiring excellence, what does that mean to you?
I have to start by saying this is a really weird moment. I listened to every episode of Offer Accepted, and after every episode, I'm like, how would I answer that today? So I can't believe I'm here today.
Welcome to the show.
Hiring excellence to me is having an embedded recruiting model, and which plays into a lot of the things we've been talking about this evening. But to me, an embedded recruiting model is similar in some ways to how PVPs have been embedded for so long. But I've always been confused on why did the talent team not have the same budget or opportunity to be that embedded in the business. So this last year, we actually got budget to embed our recruiters as the exact same budget as the PVPs. And there's kind of 2 ways that I think about embedded. One is in the business, so being able to go to the core teams that you support, be in their weekly team meetings, go to their offsites, join their department meetings, be able to go meet up with them when they're having some fun like activities in SF or something, and really feeling like you're a part of their team, but also along the way learning more and more about what they're working on, what they're doing, what's going well, or their challenges, et cetera. And then I also think about embedded recruiting like field sales, being out in the industry. And I think the more that we can streamline with new technology like AI, the more we can save our recruiters time and actually get them out in front of candidates again when able, and be able to take them out to dinner, bring them out to coffee, meet them at a conference or an event like tonight. And through that, you start to deeply understand the business more. The team feels more appreciated, more engaged, and then they, at the same time, get to become thought leaders in the industry too, which is really motivating for them.
I love that so much. My favorite question, inspired our cocktail, Spicy Margarita. We always ask our guests, what is your recruiting hot take?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. I'm going to say AI, but not in the way that everyone's going to go, oh my gosh, another thing of AI. So,
cancel him.
So I'm all leaned in on AI. I love AI, and I've been trying to learn as much as I can. And like a lot of people, I don't know where this is going, but I want to be on the right side of AI, and I want to make sure that everyone I work with is able to be on that right side of AI too, so they can evolve. However, I feel like 99% of conversations are, did you check out that new tool? What are you implementing? Can you create your own custom GBT now? And there's not enough conversations, especially at the leadership level, on how are you developing the next generation of TA leaders in this time of rapid change and unknown. And I want to see that balance more. So my hot take is every one of us has a really cool opportunity to help shape the future of recruiting with AI. TA leaders, it is our duty to make sure the next generation is prepped for that.
Period. I love that though, because I think a lot of people are thinking at an individual level with AI and how do I upskill and what can I do to like be prepared, but I feel like not enough people are thinking, how do I make my team successful in this way? Whether they stay here or they move on, how can I be part of a change for good so that I can say confidently, if someone from my team leaves, like they have the skills to be so successful because we worked hard to set them up for success.
Yeah, just going back to the basics, right? Your alumni network is your brand. That never goes away. And so the more you can enable your team to be on the right side and have the skill sets to evolve, that is a further branding approach, right? And you can think back and be like, that was a company that cared, and that was a company that sets the new standard I have for anywhere else I'm going. So that's always my hope for our team.
Yeah, because even when someone leaves a company by choice, or even if it's a layoff, like you want people to leave saying, I feel like this company did everything they could to help me succeed, and I'm better for it. And, you know, I've called people before, not currently, I'm obviously not looking for a job. Where's my beacon marketing? But in the past, when I've asked people why they left a company, sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, it was horrible. And then sometimes they're like, no, I was just ready to move on. But it's an amazing company, and I would absolutely work there again. That's a huge difference in, you know, what people say moving forward. So yeah, I definitely think that's important.
I love that. Our head of people, we often talk with her around, we want to be the person or the company that on an individual's LinkedIn, they put X Juniper Square. So that's a North Star for us that we're working towards. And I think that can only be resolved that can only be accomplished, if you're focusing on really helping set up your talent for the future, even when they leave your company.
Absolutely. This was a curveball question that I told him he was going to answer when he walked in the door. But Tommy, I would love to hear, if you could tell your early career self one thing, what would it be?
It would be a long conversation. But the first
Me too.
that I would say, I think I realized this when I moved into my current role. Like I said, it was unplanned. And I had such bad imposter syndrome. Within like a month of getting the role, I was at an offsite with our executive team, and I was like, they're looking at me to answer this now. Like, this is just a really interesting time. And I had a lot of mentors I looked up to, and I realized I was trying to be them versus just authentically being me. And like, my greatest tool is to be me while taking in what I learned from them. And so if I could go back to young, awkward Tommy, I'd say just be yourself, lean in, and learn from everyone along the way, but don't lose yourself in that, and you have value.
You do have that. Well, we are coming up on our time for the podcast. Where should people go to learn more about you and your work?
So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on there quite a bit. And then Tommy@junipersquare.com.
Amazing. Well, Tommy, thank you so much for joining us on Offer Accepted. I have been so excited for this event and to have you on after our years of knowing each other. Tommy, I actually was one of my customers when I was in a customer-facing role, so we're really in a full circle moment here, but I really appreciate you spending time with us today, and thank you.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me.
This episode was brought to you by Ashby, what an ATS should be, a scalable, all-in-one tool that combines powerful analytics with your ATS, scheduling, sourcing, and CRM. To never miss an episode, subscribe to our newsletter at www.ashbyhq.com/podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.